What's up, Acidicloop back again, and today we're going to do a tutorial on some chord construction within our Akai Force. Now, granted, there is already a chord mode that happens within the note config one up in here, but following our theory thug life that we're doing, I figured we'd go ahead and teach you exactly kind of how these chords are going to be made and such, and that way you just have a little bit of the theory behind it. So in the last video, if you watched it, we talked about the major scale, and the major scale is kind of the linchpin, the core of everything we're going to be doing, whether it be modes, whether it be just playing scales, whether it be, you know, creating chords, those sort of things. And the reason we picked that is because I'm kind of focusing more on the Western style music, which would be popular like rock and pop and funk and blues and kind of stuff like that, and not some of the exotic stuff, you know, like Hungarian minors and all that kind of stuff. This is just talking about just the general, what they consider the Western style of music or whatever. So for this particular one, I'm picking the key of C, and I'm picking major as far as the note config set up here, but I've also set it up on the top left to chromatic, so that way you can see all of the notes, not just the ones that are highlighted, which are the scale in this case here. And it makes it a little bit easier to understand. So let's just do a recap of the major scale. Again, we talked about how in the chromatic scale, that would be every note in our musical dictionary, in this case being 12 notes. In the major scale, it's considered what they call diatonic, and we're basically picking out 7 notes out of that 12 to represent this particular major scale. And everything will be based off of this. All of our chord construction, everything will be based off of the major scale. So the pink on your Akai Force would be the root. In this case, I'm picking C because it has no sharps and flats, because sometimes sharps and flats may confuse beginners. So I'll just keep it simple with just the letters and not the F sharps and G sharps and all that. So we know from the previous video, if you didn't watch it, the C major scale in this case here would be C, D, and again, the highlighted notes are the scale. I've got it in chromatic mode so you see all of the pads. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. So in this case here, C is here. C is also there. It's what they call an octave. And you can kind of think of it as a numbered system, okay? And to kind of demonstrate the chord construction part of it, I'm going to change the mode of what it looks like. And we're going to slip back to scale on the top left. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the top right up in here. I'm going to move that back until it says start on root. So in this case here, going from this note to this note, this is our entire major scale, all 7 notes that we want to mess with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're going to do it based off of a numbering system in this particular case, where the 1 is the root, 2, 3, and so on. And I had talked in the last video about intervals as well. It's kind of, you know, needed here, but not necessarily. So let's talk about just basic chord construction. When you think about a chord is what they call a triad, and a triad is just basically taking and stacking what they call thirds. So what do I mean by thirds? Well, in the major scale, okay, we have the 1 and 2 and 3, right? So in this case here, between this one and this one, okay, that's 3 notes. So I'm taking this and I'm combining that, but then again, I'm stacking another third on top of it. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, that one, and then 1, 2, 3, that one. So I'm stacking thirds is what I'm doing in this particular case. And that is how you make a chord. But the formula that we're using for the major chord, or the core of a chord, is called the 1, the 3, and the 5. Okay, so 1, get my finger where the camera is, 1, the 3, and the 5. Okay, so in this case, the 1 being our root, which is C here. And then the third is 1, skip this one, go to this one. Okay, so we have C, D, E. So in this case, C and E are the start of our C major chord. By the way, we're making a C major chord because I'm starting in this note here. This is my root note, okay? So C, skip the second, go to the third, okay? Skip this fourth one here and go to the fifth, because again, it's going to be 1, 3, and 5. So 1, 3, 5. Put it together, and that is a C major chord. So in this case, we have C, we have E, and then we have G. C, E, and G make up a C major chord. Now, when you start talking about the tonalities in Western style music, you basically have major and minor. You also have a diminished, which is more of a dissonance type of deal. But in this case here, the major is going to be happier sound, and then the minor is going to be a little bit more melancholy, a little bit more bluesy, if you will. And in this case, we can hear that this has a nice, happy type of tone to it. Now, what's cool about this is that you can also use the exact same formula to make all of the chords. Now, in this particular case, if I have the key of C major, if somebody, and this is just a generality, okay, this is not written in stone, but if somebody said, hey, listen, I'm playing a song in the key of C, and that's all they say, they are likely talking about C major. Unless they specify I'm playing in A minor or something like that, then typically it's going to be considered major. Now, it's not always the case. Not everybody follows that rule, but it's a general rule that a lot of people follow. If I'm in the key of G, I'm in G major, right? So in this case, I'm saying I am in C major, okay? That is the key of my song that I have chosen to write. Now, I want to determine what chords can I play in my song if I choose to have the song be in C major. Well, we have 7 choices from the major scale. We obviously have the 1, which is C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. So those are the notes that I can make chords out of in my song. Now you may be wondering, well, which ones are major and which ones are minor? Now there is a quick rule. I kind of wonder if I even want to say it because it may confuse you when I start saying the 1, 3, and the 5. So I'll hold off on that for a moment. So just know that to make the chord, the basic chord, we're not talking about extended chords with 7s and 9s and suspended 2 and all that stuff. Just basic triads. That's a 1, a 3, and a 5 of any major scale. Okay? In this case, C major for me. So we already knocked out the first chord in my C major scale, which is C, D, E, and G. That's a C major. So if we go to the next note in our C major scale, this is the 2, right? This is a D. Now, in this particular case, I guess I will tell you the shortcut rule to think about. Just don't confuse it with the 1, 3, 5. Basically, if you pick any key, it doesn't matter what key it is, and you want to know what majors and minors in that scale are, which degrees of that scale are going to be major and minor, the rule is the 1, the 4, and the 5 of any major scale is going to be a major chord. That's a guarantee no matter what you pick. If it's G major, if it's C major, D major, it doesn't matter. The 1 of that scale is going to be a major chord. The 4 of that scale is going to be a major chord. And the 5th of that scale is going to be a major chord. That is if you want to stay within the Western style that everybody listens to, like just normal Western pop rock and blues and that stuff. If you stick within that genre, that's always the case. That leaves us with the 2, the 3, the 6, and the 7. I will tell you just off the bat, the 7, it's very rarely used in popular music. It's called diminished, and it's more of a dissonance trying to get us back to the root note itself. Okay, so it's not usually seen in a lot of popular songs, but it is there. So I'll just knock that one out of the park right now. The 7th is always, of any scale, is always going to be diminished. Okay, so we know the 1, the 4, and the 5 of my scale is going to be major. That means that the 2, the 3, And the 6 of any major scale of any key is always going to be minor chords. So you can say to yourself, if my song is in C major, I know for a fact that I will have a major C major if I want to play it. I will have a D minor if I want to play it. I will have an E minor if I want to play it. I will have an F major if I want to play it. A G major if I want. An A minor and a B minor, a B diminished in my chord selection for my song. Okay? And you can say, you can mix and match any of those chords as long as it's within that scale, and it will sound nice. Okay? Now, when I get to talking about, if you read chord books and scale books, which I don't recommend, they'll give you more formulas to remember. And me, I'm more of a simple kind of guy where I only like to learn maybe 1 or 2 formulas at most if I need to. So what they will say in these books is that in order to make a minor chord, you would do the 1, the flatted third, and the 5th of any scale, okay, of any note. I'm sorry. Now, I'm not going to do that because, again, I like to keep it simple, and I'll just keep reminding you, the 1, the 3, and the 5 are all you need. And I'll demonstrate. So we already knocked out the major for the C, the very first root note there. Now let's move to the D, which we know is going to be a minor. So if we do the 1, now we're saying our 1 is that note in order to create this chord construction, okay? So we're going to say the 1 is now the D. So skip this one, go to the second here, okay? Third, I'm sorry. So 1, 2, 3. Again, we're stacking thirds. So we have D, F, and then if I skip this one and go to this one, okay, add that one in there, that is now my A. So D, F, and A played together is D minor. Sounds minor-y, right? If that's a word, minor-y. That's a little bit more melancholy than this one. Okay? But it fits in the song because it is within the same scale. So all we did is keep the same formula of the 1, 3, and 5 to do this. Now, if you were to just pick D as the root and not even use this pattern here that we have, and you were to take the 1, if you were to take a D major, let's just say a D major scale, and you did the 1, the flatted third, and the 5th, you will find that it is these notes. Okay? It is the D, it is the F, and it is the A. That is our D minor. So let's move up to the third note, which we now know is also A minor because I mentioned the 1, the 4, and the 5 are always major in any major scale key. And the 2, the 3, and the 6 are always minor in any major scale key. So we know E is going to be a minor, so let's go ahead and do the same pattern, the 1, the 3, and the 5, and say, here's our 1. We're starting now with this being the 1. Skip this one, go to that one. So now we have the E, F, and G. We have G here. Skip this one and go right to the B. Play those together, and that is now E minor. So far we have C major, we have D minor, and we have E minor. Okay? Next, we're going to move on to the next one. This one here is the F, and we know this is going to be major because it's the 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4. As I mentioned, the 1, the 4, and the 5 of any major scale are always major. So we know this is F. So again, we skip, go to the next one. Okay, in this case being the A. Skip this, go to the next one, which we know is C. And you can hear it's got a little bit more major, happy sound to it. That is our F major. It is the F, the A, and the C. Okay? Now we move up to the G. Same process. The 1, 3, and 5. 1, skip this one, go to the third. Now we're going to have to go up a layer to get to this next one here, which would be this. Okay? So we know this was the C, so this would be the D. So we're saying, in this case, G, B, and D. Play them together. Got a happy sound to it, right? That is our G major. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This is the 6th degree of our C major scale. By degree, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6th degree. So again, root, our 3rd, and our 5th. Okay? Play that together and we have an A minor. In this case here, being the A, the C, and the E. Okay? Now, here's something interesting about this as well. The 6th degree of a major scale is also something they call a natural minor. And every major scale has a natural minor. It doesn't mean you can't play the other minors in your song. It's just saying this one here, tonality-wise, fits very well with the major key. A lot of times you may see some people playing something in key, let's say, in this case, A being our natural minor. They may play a song in C major, but they may solo over it with an A minor scale, or maybe even an A pentatonic minor. In this case here, that is what they call a natural minor. The 6th degree of any major scale is called the natural minor, in this case here. And you may hear that when you see the words natural minor scale. It's referring to the 6th degree of the major scale. Okay? So, A, C, and E, we know that one. And last one is our diminished, which again is not used a lot in popular music because it's got a little bit of dissonance, as you'll hear. So B, skip the 2nd, go to the 3rd, skip that, go to the 5th. Okay, hear how it's kind of got an unresolved tone. That's because the goal of creating these songs in a particular key, our goal essentially would be to somehow get it to resolve back, always resolve back to the actual root that we've chosen, the key that we've chosen. The key that we've chosen to emphasize, or the note. In this case, I'm choosing to emphasize the C because I'm saying my song is in C major. So every chord I play, I'm always wanting to somehow get back to that C major. And again, this is just popular music. It's obviously changes the rules if you play some weird, interesting other types of music. But in the general form, you're always trying to resolve back. Just like with blues. Blues typically has a 1, 4, 5 progression. You do the 1, you do the 4, then you do the 5, which leads you to get back to the 1. Okay, so it gives a little tension on the 5 to go ahead and release the tension back to the 1. So our goal is to always come back to the root, the number 1. Okay, so what we've just done is harmonize our scale. And you're thinking, hey, that sounds interesting because that's what the Akai Force has. So if you actually move up here on the scale at the top left and you move it to harmonize, check it out. It actually is doing that exact same thing. And it's the exact same chords. They're just with one single stroke of a key, as opposed to me having to do the fingering for all three, right? All three notes. But that's what harmonizing the scale is. It's doing 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, and so on and so forth. Okay? And you'll notice too, if you look at your screen for the harmonized one, on the very bottom left, it'll say that right there. This is 1, 3, and 5. It's pretty interesting. So that is what is called harmonizing the scale. Again, the easy way to do it is just have the Akai Force do the harmonized mode and just play the chords that way. But we're here to learn some theory. So that's why we chose to go and do it this way. So that is how you basically create a chord. Okay? Any chord within any scale, you can do it that way. And again, some books will tell you specific other formulas, like the 1, the flatted third, and the 5 for a minor. A C7, dominant 7 may have a flatted 7th or what have you, or a flatted 5th in that case. So in this case, it's I don't like to learn all these different formulas. Now, there are some times where you do have to learn maybe a different formula. Like, for example, when you do a 7th chord, there is different types. There is a C major 7th, there is a C minor 7th, and then there's a C dominant 7th, which does have a different formula for each one of them. You know what I'm saying? The major 7th, you can probably kind of get how that is actually achieved based on what I just taught you. So example would be, we already know the 1, the 3, and the 5 make a C major chord. Now, if I wanted to make this into a C major 7th, I think logically you may be able to arrive at the fact that if I go ahead, I'm on the 5th, I skip the 6th, and I add the 7, I'm adding the 7th, I now have a C major 7th chord. Now, we'll do more on these extended chords in maybe a different other video, but I just want to kind of point that out for you here, that when you're doing this particular chord construction, it does follow that 1, 3, 5. It does follow that stacked thirds mentality. But when you get into things like C minor 7th and dominant 7th, that's a little bit different as far as how they word it in the books and stuff as far as a formula. But just stick with this one for now. 1, 3, and 5. Pick any key you want, start on the 1, and go through each one by adding and stacking thirds. Okay? And then you will have all of the chords that you would choose in a song. So if my song is in C major, I may start with just jamming something in C, but then I may jump over to maybe, I don't know, an A minor. And then I go back to the C major, and then add the A minor. Sounds nice. They work with each other because they're all within the same scale. They're all harmonized in the same scale. So that is basically how you make chords using this particular method. Again, the 1, the 3, and the 5 are very important as far as construction of the chords themselves. As far as determining quickly what chords in a scale will be a major or minor chord, then you can use the mentality that says, or the trick that I mentioned, that the 1, the 4, and the 5 degrees of a scale, of a major scale, those will be major chords. The 2, the 3, and the 6 of any major scale will always be the minor chords, and the 7th of any major scale will be the diminished, okay, if you choose to use diminished at all. So that is basic chord construction. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to try to put out some more videos talking about some other things like the extended chords and this and that, but it will be helpful when I just start demonstrating how I'm creating some of the songs that I'm making, kind of harkening back to this theory that we're talking about here. So, until next time, don't forget to get in the loop, Acidicloop. Until next time, peace out, players.